Taxpayers are set to fund HS2 tunnel under London despite Sunak's pledge. We're going to read into this more from the Financial Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from the Financial Times with the headline of Taxpayers are set to fund HS2 tunnel under London despite Sunak's pledge. £1 billion injection would end uncertainty over whether railway lines would reach its planned central London terminus at Euston. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So let me just clarify, and I'm sure this is probably it. So when Rishi Sunak announced the scrapping of HS2, it was mainly up the north. The plans and the projects were mainly going to be up the north. Now, there were some parts, obviously, of HS2 that were still going to be going ahead. It wasn't a complete scrap. It was basically what's happening down at the south from London, and parts were going to be kept, the projects were going to be kept going. A very important thing. But I still stand on this principle, and I've said this before when talking about HS2, that in no way, shape or form should it have been scrapped. And yes, I understand that a huge amount of taxpayer money was wasted and a lot of money disappeared, and we don't know why things cost so much more than it did. Yes, of course, there should be an investigation, a deep investigation into why it cost so much money. And Alex from Political X did a video several months ago, a brilliant video on it, and I'll put a link in the description if you haven't already seen it, talking about those numbers, because it really was quite shocking, the amount of taxpayer money that's been wasted on HS2. However, despite that, the reason why I still, despite all that, I still backed HS2, despite the fact that it was costing so much money. The main reason for my position is that I'm thinking about things from the long term. Now, we here in London, because I live just outside London specifically, we have all the transport we need. We have more than enough transport. We've literally got London Underground, we've got plenty of National Rail, we've got bus services, we've got whatnot. Now up north, the Midlands, while they do have public transports, it's not enough for those up north. And I know that many people up north, especially with some of the train services, have been absolutely short of atrocious. Absolutely, no question, atrocious. The whole point of High Speed 2 was to obviously interconnect cities and whatnots up the north, the Midlands, and even as far as Scotland, bringing basically creating jobs and prosperity, allowing people to connect from A to B, and other ways of people being able to grow. And essentially, it would pay back itself in terms of growing the economy, because that's what it would have done. That this high speed rail. That was the whole thing. It would essentially bring lots of prosperity, because when you build new infrastructure, transport infrastructure, road infrastructure, rail infrastructure, all that kind of stuff, it creates jobs, which creates more jobs vacancies are needed, which means more workers get to work, which means again you get to grow the economy. Yes, there's always an initial cost at first, but over time you pay that cost back. It goes back into the coffers over time. And I generally believe, like in 50 years time, if let's just say 50 years after HS2, let's just say if it all got built and whatnot, 50 years later it would pay back itself because of the contribution that it would make to the economy. Having said that, it's frustrating to see that that at the moment this isn't announced, but this obviously a story from the Financial Times here is obviously something that is like, oh. So obviously it says here that a £1 billion injection would end uncertainty over whether a railway line will reach its planned central London terminus at Euston. Like I said, there's still part of HS2 that is still going ahead, but it is only from London to a certain point, but it's not going to be something that's going to make a massive difference. We still don't know what Labour are going to do when they come into power, because the problem is that the Sunak wanted to sell off the land, because the government had already bought the land of what they were initially doing for HS2. We don't know, as far as I'm aware, we don't know how much of that land has been sold off or is it been sold off, the original one. So it's entirely possible that a Labour government may come in and restart the whole project again. But we don't know that. because they are not 100% sure about it either. So that's why they can't really be very clear about it, which, in my opinion, I think that's understandable for Labour to say that. But my general consensus is that I do hope Labour look, whether the land is sold or not, they will look at this project and look to try to revive parts of this project for the benefit of the people up the north, people from Scotland down, from the Midlands that way. Not so much London. London's got enough. It's more, for me, it's more about how can we help improve the infrastructure and transport up north. That's where it's going to be. For me, that would be more of a priority than transport networks in London. But let's read more into this funding that HS2 are going to get them. So, High Speed 2 is set to get the green light to dig a 4.5 mile tunnel under central London within weeks. The government expected to release over £1 billion of taxpayer cash for the work, according to Whitehall and industry figures. Another tunnel. The cash injection would end uncertainty over whether the high-speed rail line will reach its planned central London terminus at Euston, but raised questions about Rishi Sunak's pledge to shift the cost to the private sector. In October, the UK Prime Minister announced a plan to save the £6.5 billion from the redevelopment of Euston's terminus and tunnel link by handing responsibility to a new public-private department corporation. Sunak unveiled the plan as he junked the entirety of the HS2 northern leg because it was running tens of billions of pounds over budget. His decision turned a line cornered as a grand project connecting England's south to the north of a tragic high-speed route between London and the Midlands. The tunnelling needs to bring HS2 to the centre of London and has remained an area of uncertainty even after Sunak's decisive and controversial reshaping of the £67 billion rail project. Ministers had paused the Euston terminus redevelopment in March 2023 over cost concerns. The government is expected to soon give the final approval for works to begin tunnelling in the final 4.5 mile of the West London rail interchange at Old Oak Commons to Euston, the Whitehall and industry figures have said. So here, this is the work that they've already begun there. You can see from Fouts Wyslip to Old Oak Commons staff. And the work set to approval will be from there all the way up to Euston Station there, according to the map. Taxpayer will be funded upfront over the £1 billion cost of the tunnel under the plans due to be signed off by ministers, they added. The price tag is accounted for by the HS2. In 2019, prices at the rail project has not revised its costing to account for inflation since then. Tunnel boring machines are due to start work in 2025. Sir John Armott, chair of the National Infrastructure Commission, has warned in an interview with the Financial Times last November that despite Sunak's plans, the public would have to pay for the tunnel to Euston. At the end of the day, the government will need to be ready to fund the core civil engineering for the final miles of this project, he said. One Whitehouse source insisted the government still hoped to recoup the cost of the tunnelling, but said the savings Sunak envisioned would come much later, while the wider Euston redevelopment is completed. Another official said alternative funding mechanisms could ultimately pay for the tunnelling, which could include a retrospective levy on developers. Essentially, Euston's redevelopment is being made possible by private sector capital that applies for work going forward, but it also applies to work going back in time, they said. Under Sunak's plan, private developers meant to pay for the HS2 station at Euston and tunnelling to the Old Oak Common. In exchange, it would get to build profitable houses, offices and shops at Euston. In November, Dame Bernard Kelly, the top civil servant at the Department of Transport, told MPs the private sector would ideally fund the station approaches and were also looking for private funding to cover the whole cost for running the Old Oak Common to Euston. The Transport Department said it remained committed to a privately financed Euston station as previously set out, helping to deliver value for money for taxpayers. There is already extensive support and interest from private sector to invest, and we will And we will set out full details in due course, a spokesperson added. HS2 Limited, the body running the rail project, declined to comment. Parliament's Public Accounts Committee warned that the Transport Department against further delays to the building HS2 all the way to Euston, saying it would incur much greater costs from the stopping and restarting work rather than proceeding. A consortium of Shanshiga, Costain and Strabag was given a £3 billion contract in 2020, now worth $4 billion in today's money, to tunnel from Ruislip to out of London all the way to Euston, a distance of over 13 miles. Tunnelling has already begun in West Ruislip to Old Oak Common. HS2 is not expected to start running trains until between 2029 and 2033. While it's nice for those who are going to have this rail line, for them who's going to get it, for me, my frustration is still the fact is that the North has been ignored on this matter. That's where my gripe I really have on this project. It should never have been started down here, guys. It should not have been. It should have been started up north. Should have been started in Scotland and done there when they decided this project. They're never thinking about the interest of outside the capital. Like when this project was announced, I had doubts about it too. Like I was skeptical about it too. But for me, it's not about improving London's infrastructure in any way. For me, like, of course, you always want London to improve its infrastructure. Of course I do. But I know, and I don't live up north. Like, I hear what people are saying in the Midlands, in up north, what their public infrastructure is like in comparison to London. It's nowhere near as good as London's. I know it's not. And this would have made a massive difference. And they should have certain projects similar to what London has had up there. What Manchester should have similar. Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Leeds, Birmingham. They should have similar projects, similar underground rail and tube systems in similar ways that London has, albeit even if they're small ones. They should have these projects. You know, it makes sense. It improves transport. It gets people around. Less people in cars. Better emissions. But again, I know what people are going to say in the comments. But Regan, this all costs money. Of course it costs money. Infrastructure costs money. Of course it costs money. The whole point of it all is that eventually it pays back in dividends because people will be using those modes of transportation. Creates jobs. All that kind of stuff, guys. And what happens when you have more work, more jobs, more infrastructure? People are getting able to A to B a lot easier. Less people using cars, more people using public transport. More job opportunities. Grows the economy. It literally will grow the economy in the long term. It literally will. Like, even I am not an economist, but even I know that by creating more public transport, creating more infrastructure, yeah, you are opening up more businesses and opportunities for investment. Like, literally, you are creating money in the long term by investing. Yes, you put money in now and it pays back later on in life. That's how it works. It's not rocket science. It really is not. But, you know, Sunak decided to make things more difficult. But what do you guys honestly think about this part of HS2? What do you guys honestly think about the investment coming in? Another £1 billion injection to finish it off. What do you honestly think? Should we be finishing it off? Or do you actually think that Labour could revise the project? I want your honest opinions. Would you, would you have approved the project yourselves? I want you to answer me in the comments below. Would you guys actually approve this project if it meant obviously paying back dividends in decades to come? Would you have been worth it? Let me know your thoughts about HS2, what its original project and lines are. Let me know your thoughts all about that, this current thing, and more in the comment section down below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble, Patreon, or even Facebook for exclusive content on them as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.